Hello! A new feature for Steve's Factory Manager incoming, or rather, it's a rework of something that has already been here for, well, since the start actually. So, you need to be able to select containers, and containers is a group name for inventories, tanks, receivers, emitters, and the block detectors. So you need to be able to select them, and previously we had this list that scrolled to the side. Which it worked alright, but, well, if you had a system with like 300, 400 containers, it would be a pain to select that, or even if you just had 20 or 30. But if you just had a few, it were alright. Right, so that system is gone. We have a new system, and to show that, I'm going to build a little setup here. Okay. Some chests. There we go. Let's go with that. Some relays. Let's add some more relays, a chest, and hoppers. Like that. Okay. Just some random components like that. Okay. Now I want to open, create an input. It doesn't matter what command I have. I just want a command where I can select containers. Okay. So this is the new look for the whole thing. And what we can do is go here and search for hopper, for instance. And there you go. So now we have these hoppers. And of course I can also do .all to list all of them, and now we get scroll arrows here because, well, we have too many, and you can see all of these things here. When I hover here, we can also see some tiny changes to this mouse over display. We have the amount of blocks it is away, and also the amount of cables. The amount of cables is the amount of cables it has to go through to reach the very block, whereas the well, how many blocks it is away, it's just a shortened distance. So we can see this chest here is just 2 blocks away, but it has to go through 20 cables to get there. And it's the amount of cables which actually defines the order they are displayed here. So this is displayed in the end just because we have 20 cables. This is how it has always been. It's just shown now to allow you to utilize that better, because you need to know that a bit later on. Right, so if we go back to hopper, if we search for hopper here, right, now we have all the 5 hoppers, and we can select these without a problem. However, we can also click select all. Will that select all our containers? No, it will only select the containers that we're currently listing. So now if we go back to .all, we can see that only the hoppers were selected because those were the only ones being shown, like that. That means that we can search for what we want, select them all, and that's done. We can of course also hit deselect all, which does the same thing, and invert selection, which just inverts everything like that. So now we inverted everything because we searched for everything like that. And then deselect all, there we go. If we go here to find multi-selection interaction, we have the amount of containers we have selected, and some little text here saying that we haven't got multiple containers selected. If we however select multiple containers and go back, we can see these radio buttons that we remember from previous versions, or well, the previous way this worked. Right, so that's a good start, I think, but well, we haven't even got into the advanced stuff yet. Right, so we have this button here, select filter. So we can select a filter, and then we can define 4 different types of filters, whichever way we want. And then we can set these filters. So we have 4 different types of filters, and we can set those. However, before we start with that, I want to mention the fact that this filter, it's only for searching. So it's only for you. So if you are multiple players on this server, then you will have your individual filter, so you can, you know, search for a hopper with a specific position, more to that later, whereas someone else is looking for a furnace at another position, for instance. That being the fact, allows it to only be for you, and therefore you can share it among all commands without a problem. If everyone had the same filter and you work with different commands, then you wouldn't want to mess up someone else's filter, right? This means that if I go in here, select filter here, and change something here, it's going to be changed there as well. Why is this good? Well, for 2 things. When I change the filter here, it's going to update here, right? More to what this actually did later. And another thing is, if you set a filter that is very good for defining the blocks you want, and you want to define, well, select those blocks in multiple commands, then you don't have to reselect the filter. This search box will, however, be unique, so you just search it again, like so. Okay, so let's take all of these one by one. Okay, so I want to use the position range, and then I click set there. Okay, so what I have here is basically the relative coordinates to the manager. So if I want every single container that has the same y value as the container, then I do it like that. So I told it I want to look for the y value, and it has to be 0 to 0, which is the same, and that's it. We can of course look for everything that's 5 blocks below up to 5 blocks above, like that. So to negate something, you just hit the dash when it's selected, and you can do it again to remove it again, like so. Okay, so now it will find everything, because everything is between -5 and 5 compared to the manager in this current setup. Then we can of course invert it. Now it's trying to find everything that is more than 5 blocks below and more than 5 blocks above, like so. And then you can of course select multiple ones at the same time, and there we go. So now we're looking for blocks that are in this setup here, but it also has to be, this thing also has to be true, and we find these 3, like so. Right, so why are these relative coordinates? Well, it's a very simple reason. Otherwise you would have to add a lot of digits, and therefore we would have to well, use more space here, or make the digits smaller, which would make it tricky to see. So when you are at like y, well, not y value, but like x value 50,000, well, then you would have to add 50,000 and your coordinates into these 2 boxes. However, it might be, well, nice to be able to make sure that you actually added these relative coordinates correct, and therefore you can hover here, and it's going to tell the absolute ranges when you hover. So we can see that -5 plus 5 in y value gives us -1 to 9 in the absolute ranges there. So that means that the manager was put on y value 4. So that's just a little thing that can help you, well, realize exactly what you wrote here. But so if you want something that is right on top of the manager, just add a 1 here and a 1 here, and that's going to do it. Now we don't have anything that is both here in that range and that range at the same time, so we can define what we want like that. So it's very useful to yeah, well, define the filter in something else if you want to do a lot and see what happens. And that's a good thing, that the filter is shared between all the commands. Right, so let's go back, and I don't want that anymore. Now let's take a look on the distance range. Okay, so we have the cable distance and normal distance. So the cable distance is how many, well, cables away it is. Remember, the manager is actually counted in that, so something right next to the manager has a range of 1. Otherwise it will get 2 if you have 1 cable and so on. So the manager in this aspect is counted as 1. Right. Okay, so let's see. Let's take a distance of, let's say, 2. And the reason why it's not updating here is because I forgot to select it there. Right, so what can we see now? Well, we can see these blocks that are super close to the manager, but we can also see these 2 chests. Or no, that chest actually, sorry. This is close to the manager, and that is close to the manager, but not through the cables. We can see it's 20 cables away. And this is why we have added it, well, why I've added the description here of how many cables away it is here, because you can search for it. So now we're actually looking for everything that is close to the manager, not close cable-wise. And if we want to look for things close cable-wise, we can of course do that as well. And we only have that one being that close. We can of course look for both as well. Or what we could do would be to look for something that is close, but, well, to the manager, but it can't be close. Let's do it like that. It can't be close cable-wise. So now we're looking for everything that is far away when we go through the cable, but due to it looping around, we get close to the manager again when we just look for the shortest distance. And here you can just define things as you wish, with of course increasing those as well, the lower limits, and now we get that one that is close enough, and so on. So just whatever you want to define the proper things here, and then you can of course select all, and then those 2 are selected, for instance. Right, so that's the distance range. And we go back here. Selection filter, we actually saw that, even though I didn't describe what it was. Let's open here. Okay, we have just two options here. We can do only selected or hide selected. It should be fairly straightforward. So if we only want the selected to show, then only the ones we have selected will show up. Quite simple. And if we do the opposite, then, well, everything that's not selected will show up. So maybe we have a lot of things selected already, and we don't want them to be in the way when we're looking for new stuff. Then just hide the selected ones and add that to your filter. Fine, it's done. And that's going to allow you to, when I select this one, it's going to disappear. Not because we removed it, but because we selected it, and therefore it's not going to be shown anymore. So that makes sure that, well, when you select things, they are removed from view just so they won't be in your way. And that's all the selected. So maybe you want to do something with your selected ones. Maybe you want to look that you have actually selected the right ones. Then yeah, look for only the selected ones, and that's done. Cool. Right. So there you go. So that's pretty much it for these sub ones for now. We'll take a look on this use variable filter in just a few minutes. But before I want to talk about that, I want to talk about this one. So here you can invert the whole lot. So it's going to look for everything, and everything that is matches it, then we invert it and don't show those. So now if I look for everything that is selected, and also okay, so that one wasn't doing anything. So now we're looking for everything that's selected and everything that is close, but the cable can't be, well, you know, in this range. It's a very weird thing to search for. But if we do this and invert it, it's going to show everything else. So now we're actually finding things that is both selected and not selected, even though we just look for the only selected ones. Because what's happening is basically we don't show the only selected ones and the ones that this match for. So you can invert the whole lot there as well. Right. And then of course you can hit clear here, which clears everything in the filter. So everything here will go back to what it was. And yeah, so just clears the filter like so. Another thing you can do if you have a lot of weird filters going on, and you don't want to remove it, but you want to take a look on everything, everything, every single container that is, then you can just type no filter or .no filter. Then it's going to show everything, like if you would type .all, but it also ignores the filter itself. So now .all only gives me 7 because I'm looking for something that's selected already, like that. Okay, so before we take a look at that, I want to discuss the variables here a bit. So if we create two variables, like so, and let's use this one as the orange one, and I'm going to call this no, that was actually selected, hoppers, like so. So I'm going to select all the hoppers in here, and of course I have the new menu here as well. So what I'm going to do is just hopper and select all. Done. Pretty straightforward. And now I have all hoppers here. Right. So nothing special. What if I want to look at these two variables here? They won't show up here, right? So that's a bit weird. Well, the reason why they have been removed from the normal list is because, well, when you had all 16 variables in use, it was quite tricky to actually get to your containers. Well, it took some time just because all the variables was in the front, and if they would have been put in the back, then it would be taking forever for you to actually find them. So the way you get them is now you type .var like so, short for variable, and then they will all show up. Hoppers and white variable like so, because it's unnamed, and you can of course select them all, deselect them all, and invert the selection like so as well. So nothing special there really, just search for them like so, and then you can select them. Right, so now when we take a look on that, we can take a look on this filter there. Okay, so use variable filter. Let's use that. And now all of a sudden, all the hoppers disappeared. The reason why that happened is because here we have use unused. That might sound a bit weird, but we use unused, well, with the variable in mind. So that means that everything that is already in use by a variable in its declaration will not show up. So if we have a lot of things already used somewhere else and we don't want them to, well, take up space in the search here, we can just select use unused, and therefore they will be omitted. Pretty straightforward. So maybe we want to search for other items for this variable, and we know, well, we want the hoppers there, we don't want them here, then they will be gone. But we can also click here, use filter, and now everything disappeared. The reason why is because when we use a filter, we only want to show the ones we have selected. So now I clicked use filter and selected the hoppers one, so now it will only show everything that's in there. If I select another one, that doesn't mean that these will disappear, because they are not actually a part of the white one, because now it will pick everything that is in either the hoppers one or in the white variable one. Of course, we can invert this, which means that we will exclude all the hoppers again. So that would be the same to use, click this one, but of course, if we had other things in the white variable and so on, that wouldn't be the exact same thing. So use unused would be to click invert here and select all your variables. So this is just a short way, a quick way of doing that. So that would be exactly like use unused for 2 variables. If we had a 3, we would have to select that one as well. Right. So that's pretty much it. So we can define what variables we want it to be in, invert those things. We can define whether they should be selected or not, the distance. We can define the range in position. We can see the absolute ranges here. We can look at the variables differently by doing so. And of course, no filter will list all the containers without the filter in mind. The filter is shared between all the commands, which allows you to do something like this. And also, when we find something, we can select that in multiple places. There you go. That's pretty much it. Good luck.